heart's so wise and true. In her mind, visions of the new. Sees potential in every soul. Loves her compass, loves her goal. Oh, she's longing up day and night, with a heart that's glowing bright. Helping those who need a hand, guiding them to understand. Counseling hearts so wise and true. In her mind, visions of the new. Sees potential in every soul. Loves her compass, loves her goal. Oh, she's longing up day and night, with a heart that's glowing bright. Helping those who need a hand, guiding them to understanding. Advocate for every child, lending ears and running wild. Shines a light in the darkest place, fighting battles with mother's grace. Investigates with sharpest eyes, exposes truth, no compromise. Holds opinions strong and willful, but gives advice that's ever skillful. Oh, she's longing up day and night, with a heart that's glowing bright. Helping those who need a hand, guiding them to understand. She, the force of nature, strong and kind, voice for those who can't speak their mind. Sees the world through a lens so clear, finds the truth without any fear. Oh, she's warming it up day and night.
Hey, Casey, how are you?
That's glowing bright.
Just getting,
Helping those who
making sure
need
everybody's
a
situated
hand,
because this is some
guiding them
crazy
to
weather spiraling around
understand.
where we are. We're in Clarksville right now. I wish I was
Counseling
up in New
hearts
York
so
though. I'm
wise
not a
and
tornado
true.
gal.
In her mind, visions of the new. Sees
I am not a
potential in
tornado
every
gal, guys.
soul. Loves her compass, loves her.
I'll be able to chat more in a few minutes, but I don't understand. So this area, because my son's going to be doing about 3 years at Fort Campbell, which is, half in Kentucky, half in Tennessee. Why do we not have storm shelters? Even in New York, where I grew up, we had underground cellars and things like that. We had basements. This entire area, there's no basements, there's no storm shelters. This is like a whole new world. And I am now learning from all of our neighbors because we think that's the one amazing thing about where we are is that it's all, military, active duty, and law enforcement and things. So we have an amazing community in our neighborhood. And, it's kind of like a private neighborhood, but it's not like locked gated. And they're like, this is a tornado valley. Like we're in what? How did I not know this? How did I not know this, y'all? If you can fill me in on how do you live stress free with tornadoes like that? How do y'all do it? I hope you're doing well, Casey. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for coming in and saying hi. It's been an extremely hectic week. So I figured let me just come on and talk to you guys. It'll keep my nerves calm. The kids are on the electronics. My husband's getting all the battery packs together, and he has the radar on the TV. And normally I am not a stressed out person, but for some reason, I think it's because of everything that I went through this week with the baby and his surgery turning into another emergent. Like he had two surgeries. The last one on Friday was almost 5 hours long of active general anesthesia. not the total time start to finish because there, it takes time. So I'm thinking that maybe that's why my stress is a little higher, but I feel like off and on eggshells. So I figured let me go live and talk to everybody because I don't want to get the kids feeling uneasy. And if they see me scatterbrained and not my normal, calm, cool, collective self, they're going to feed off of that energy, right? Oh, Casey Ruku, I'm taking a little bit of a break right now. I reached out to some people to just let them know I've had some really unsettling things go on, and I'm just going to take a little bit of a break because I don't want anybody to further distract from Sebastian in any way. And that seems to be, as we know, some really bad, malicious people have hopped into this and they enjoy that. Um, so I'm taking a little bit of a break from Sebastian and I'll just be sharing his flyers and I'll still go on panels if anybody asks, just so I can make sure not to feed into any nonsense. I mean, people will still talk. We know how it is. But I want to kind of just take a step back and we can try to see if we can see severe thunderstorm warning for your location. Did you get that? Well, we're used to the thunderstorms. Just to see if we can kind of find out where some of the localized in real life stuff is coming from. Honey, are you sitting on the front porch? That's not safe. Patrick, what are you doing out there? What are you doing? Oh, you all are nuts. You can't see tornadoes in the dark. We're not in a warning yet here. The warning's over there. I thought it was just, oh, all right, okay. Hi, Brad. How are you? I didn't see you guys out there. Sorry, y'all. I just looked out and there's my husband sitting on the front porch and he's sitting there with our neighbors. So that I'm embarrassed now. Um, but he works with power lines every day and stuff. He used to enjoy plowing and running the crews in New York with the snowstorms. And now he's really think he's just kind of missing some of the weather stuff and that because now he has a whole different role and he's training for something completely different. But so I figured maybe what I need to do, because so much is really, really hectic in my life with the kids and trying to juggle still doing, remote work assignments as I can, which is becoming pretty much impossible because let me be honest, I can't pull those all nighters. And a lot of the contract out, remote jobs, they're just, the time is awful, because you have to be hands on. You cannot have your children running around. You have to have a good sitter that can come in and assist. It's just become a lot. And I figured that for right now, if I just take a back seat and maybe we can try to see who's enjoying trying to hype things up and add drama and distractions. Thank you, Casey Ruku. Because my intention is never to be nefariously hurtful to anyone. And if something can be good, there's a lot of good that goes on, especially with content. But there's also some things that when there's like an active investigation, you don't, it's just some weird stuff. There's just some weirdos that seem to jump into these missing person cases that I wasn't aware of. God bless you. So it's just a temporary thing to kind of just a strategy to see if maybe we can try to understand a little better certain things. But yeah, do any of you have advice on what do you do with these tornadoes? Like, if do you deal with these regularly if you're in areas prone to tornadoes? Hi, buddy, you got to keep your foot up. Yeah, keep your foot up.
Wow.
You don't want to be, yeah, keep your foot on the pillow.
To the slide. Nice.
I'll be back in one moment. I'm going to go just make sure that my middle one didn't go back into his room because I want everybody in the same area of the house so that if we do have to seek cover, you know, everybody can get to where they need to get to in a good amount of time. Oh, you get a lot of rain. Yes. My cousin was stationed there in the Navy. And I remember he said it took a little bit to get used to the rain and then he acclimated really well to it. Nashville. Oh, they have an active. That's Nashville, though, right? I'll be right back, guys. If anybody wants to come up and chit chat with me, let me know. I'll put the link in chat.
Woke up before the dawn. She's got her armor on, fighting for those who can't. Champion with a loving chant. Investigates the hidden truth with a pen sharp and couth. Unlocks doors with every word. Injustice never goes unheard. Oh, she's momming it up with a heart so tough. Advocate for every child. Makes the world a little more wild. Counseling in every call, catching up before the fall. She sees the good in every face, spreads hope all over the place. Like Dr. Phil with a softer touch, opinions firm but love so much. Her guidance is a shining star, lifting lives both near and far. Oh, she's momming it up with a heart so tough. Advocate for every child, makes the world a little more wild. Like Dr. Phil with a softer touch, opinions firm but love so much. Her guidance is a shining star, lifting lives both near and far. Oh, she's momming it up with a heart so tough. Advocate for every child, makes the world a little more wild. Woke up before the dawn. She's got her armor on, fighting for those who can't. Champion with a loving chant. Investigates the hidden truth with a pen sharp and couth. Unlocks doors with every word. Injustice never goes unheard. Oh, she's momming it up with a heart so tough. Advocate for every child, makes the world a little.
Oh, wow. This is interesting. The storm's pretty bad, actually. And it's fascinating how the neighbors and everybody, this is, like they just want to watch it. Hmm. I'm not sure if an active tornado touched down, and I think we're supposed to have the windows shut, right? We keep the windows shut. I should know all this like the back of my hand. Sure, all the windows are shut. Um, I'm not sure if a tornado touched down in Nashville or if they just have an active, alert. Say prayers for Hey Jude and everybody in Nashville, everyone, and Seth and everybody in Clarksville, everybody in these areas. So the baby's doing pretty good. Really good. Oh my gosh, I can't even talk. The baby's doing pretty good. He hasn't had a lot of pain and discomfort. However, they did say it could be a while, for him to start to feel. We're hoping that he regains feeling. So he had traditional club feet, bilateral, meaning both. And he had a tendon lengthening surgery, which involves like the Achilles tendon. A little over a year ago was that first surgery. And when he woke up, he was screaming and screaming in a way that I've never heard a baby be able to scream. He was in a lot of pain, and they administered extra medications. And they even went as far as to say that it's possible that oh, the lights are flickering. That it was possible. Haley's in her little tent. Well, make sure you keep the little tent in the center room, please. Don't have her bring it back in her room. Try to keep it in the center room. Um, so he had a lot of pain, and one of them even said that it could be something to do with the way that he metabolized the anesthesia and the medicine. And ever since then, we noticed there was something going on where his left foot, he just didn't seem to be able to keep it in the bars and boots properly. He would twist and turn it. And it was just unbelievable, like how he could maneuver his foot in the manner that he could. There's no way. It's extremely painful. Um, and then one of the main reasons for relocating when we decided to start looking for other places, when we found out that the taxes were going up again and our daughter wasn't able to get into any special autism preschools, and it was just becoming a daunting task to try to find any therapies for her that were consistent, let alone, I mean, the wait lists were unreal. So we started looking to relocate, and then we started to, consider that Jameson, the baby, he was also not getting proper care because there was only one pediatric orthopedic that we could find, even though we were driving down to pretty much right outside New York City at the Children's Hospital. And we went for a second opinion in Connecticut at Yale Children's. They made new bars and boots, and then they started remote physical therapy because they didn't even have a physical therapist that we could see. Like it was almost 3 years of wait list without having any therapist that could even come into the house for speech, ABA, or PT, which was unheard of. Because with my older children, I actually declined a lot of services. They had plenty if you went through evaluations and they could find any kind of delay. And so since COVID happened, resources just got so strained and it was just a disaster, right? A lot of places closed down. A lot of people relocate, and then there's just a much more need because there was a lot of children that weren't getting services and things, or they were behind so all that happened. And when we were looking to move, we started to realize the baby was also having issues getting taken care of because nobody was listening and taking seriously what was happening with his foot. And we wanted a different set of braces made, and the braces are very expensive. We had to pay for them. Each time that we got a pair of boots, we had to pay for the boots, and then we also had to pay for the bar, and it was just a lot. So my husband said, we don't mind having to pay if we know it's going to work. So can they just allow us to try a different type of brace? So when we finally relocated to Tennessee, since what was happening was our house wasn't selling, then we were in contract, and then the person ended up losing the day before, in May, they lost you get a clear to close 24 hours before. Well, they didn't process it they processed their pre-approval, but their clear to close didn't go through because the interest rates went up so much that they no longer were eligible for a loan over 400,000, or maybe it was over 350. I can't remember. So long story short, our house, we got in contract with another buyer. It took all the way to September. Then finally they closed. It was a lot of back and forth like things are. We were able to finally get settled, and we needed a specific pediatrician, which is why this was one of the areas that we were coming to for my other son. And we started immediately with second opinions for the baby. We started one-on-one private therapies for our daughter. And, that was literally why we sold our house. That was what we had been looking for a long time. And if it wasn't for doing that and finally getting a doctor to listen to us, we wouldn't have found this out. But the baby had no feeling in his foot at all since that surgery. They botched the surgery and they cut his main artery to his left foot as well as the nerves. And it would have been years before until he could speak that anybody would have known what was going on, because what happens is some of the little nerves from some of the other areas of the leg sometimes will get some blood flow. But at any time, you can end up in a really scary situation where you could lose the foot and all kinds of things can go wrong because they cannot talk, they cannot tell you. So, hi, Michelle. I hope you're being safe. I'm praying for you. And they found it. And then Wednesday, we found out that we have to have emergency surgery to repair the nerves just to try to give him a chance on regaining some sort of feeling so that we know that he can try to walk and, have a decent quality of life. But he's doing good. He's doing really good. And I'm so grateful. You have to listen to your intuition. And I think a lot of times, sometimes we are as as moms and caregivers, we don't want to be looked at like we're overreacting. But when you know something, you feel something and you know something, you just know it, and you have to really go with that and not take no for an answer, and try to be stern and as kind as you can be. Thank you, Lil Redo. That is so kind of you. I appreciate that. I swiffered the floors really quick, so you hear my little crock sticking to the floors. It happens all the time. Oh, geez. Really bright. It was really bright. What's the radar look like now? That looks really crazy. That was the craziest lightning I've ever seen. This is as bad as when we lived on the mountain. Remember how eerie it was when we were on the mountain in the Hudson Valley? And we were so high up. We could see the storms and everything below. It was so, yeah, I know. This is totally different. Oh, I know she will. Well, she doesn't know. She thinks it's fun. She wants to be outside. She doesn't understand. No, we can't open. She's trying to knock on the doors and stuff to go out. You gotta stay over here with your tent. Want to jump? I'll get your trampoline. Jump, jump. Oh my gosh, you brought all your toys in? That's so funny. My daughter took every one of her favorite little things and brought it out into the center of the playroom. Where did he go? Did he sneak back in there? I just don't want him in that room too far away. But yeah, I'm just grateful that we got here and that we listened, because I know my husband was really nervous. He was at his job for like 20 years and we really loved our home. And, it takes a long time to get a home, and we had an amazing interest rate. But you got to listen to God, you got to trust in him. And when everything is showing that this is not a good situation for you or your family, it doesn't matter Yes, it's raining. How it is for other people, right? We have to think about ourselves. And as much as it's hard to understand it, right? Financially speaking, people thought we were insane when we started, in the fall of 23, looking at the different areas around the special doctors that Dill could go to. Yeah, stay in the center, okay? Make it, why don't you put fresh clothes on now, just in case? Put your jams and stuff on real quick now. Make sure you got comfy clothes and everything on now, just in case. I just put them, it's almost 10 o'clock. The whole homeschooling thing sometimes puts him a little bit on a different schedule where he's not going to bed at 8 or 9. He's going to bed more at like 11 or 12. You know how teenagers can be. It reminds you of when we lived on the mountain, right? When we lived on the mountain, when we were in between buying our house, when we sold our first little home, um, there was a tornado that actually came through the area and we watched it. The warning started coming right before him and my older son were getting off the bus. And as soon as we got in the house, there was one that actually touched down. And I didn't know what to do at the time because this was like 2018, 2019 maybe. So I just grabbed all the dogs. So there was two Akitas, our German Shepherd, and a Huskita, which was like a half Husky, half, Akita, American Akita, and our little tiny Chihuahua. And we were all in the shower. I didn't know where else to go. So I made us all go into the bathroom because it was in the center of the house. But we did. We watched it go right up along the side of the house. It's just unsettling when it's nighttime because you can't see anything. So I ordered another one of those weather alerts because my husband can't find where it is. We have one. It's an older one. We got it at Best Buy, but he can't figure out where it went. We somehow lost some of our stuff when we moved, which we don't know how that happened because pods are secure with your own lock. Is there any certain apps that you guys use? Or any of those radars that you recommend? The weather one, the weather. It's slipping my mind at the moment. They have a name for them, and you have them plugged in at all times, and then they set off alarm codes and stuff when there's something to alert you of. Be safe, Grace. I hope that you stay safe and that everybody's safe. I'm in the StreamYards app, everyone, so there's a little bit of delay with me seeing the chat. That bag, make sure you keep that up high next to you so she can't get to it because that has the baby's medicines in it and Dylan's wound supplies. The one that has a little lock zipper. So keep that up high so she can't touch it. Because it's not like it's a briefcase. You never know. She could probably open a lock. You never know. I don't know. I'm just saying, just in case. I don't know. Just be extra safe. Sometimes I think you can never be too safe, Like, it'd be a little overly paranoid with stuff sometimes. But how do you know if a tornado is coming? Like, do you hear it? Or are you really just at the mercy of the alerts? I can't get over the amount of my neighbors that are all standing on their back porches and stuff right now. Wonder if I can show you guys. I don't know how to turn the camera on. Wow. What I might have to do is end this and then try to figure out how I can enable the camera so I can show you out the window without getting right up on the window
More.
what it looks like. Very odd. And I'm sorry I have the Kindle on. Since he really can't do anything until Tuesday, I've just been, I hung the Kindle in his crib and we're just trying to give him, I know screen time is not great, but there's only so much we can do, right? We tried to play with Play-Doh and do different activities in the cribby, but you're supposed to stay in a kind of a reclined position with your foot up, right? Which is darn near impossible to have a 1-year-old do that, let me tell you. See, I don't know if there's tornado. There has to be, right? Because we're in Clarksville right now. That's what I'm thinking. There has to be sirens. See, when we were staying on the mountain in the Hudson Valley in New York, there was no sirens or anything. It was a freak, you know, um, twister that landed and it uprooted a bunch of trees and took down a bunch of billboards. But that was about it. But we watched it literally go up the side of the mountain right by our house. It was unbelievable to see because it was still daylight and it was like what you heard in the movies. So I don't know if that's typical or not, but you could hear like a, it was weird. It was so weird. I think that was probably the closest I've ever been in my life to terrified in general, honestly. So terrified that I literally squished us all with all the dogs who at the time, some of them didn't even get along with each other. But let me tell you, they all got along during that. It was pretty incredible. Lightning detected 0.1 miles from your location. I am on the phone, little Redo, and I'm hitting the cam button and it's supposed to enable the cam, but I'm thinking that because I have an extra thing on the iPhone and on my iPad for security that I have to actually exit out so I can turn that off so that the camera can come on. Good job. Good job. Sorry, he's doing a little clappity clap clap and a little dance to bingo. But I do need to find another sitter that can come in and out and help me and just help with the with some cleaning and just watching the kids if I have to work. My son with the homeschooling is not hard. I can't wait for him to go back to school though. He loves school and that's for a discussion for a different time, but things happened and he is terrified to go to school now. He just won't go. He wants to be home and if that's what we have to go through because he's 13 and he's going through hormones and he has his autism and he has different ability challenges that he has to overcome. And when you're a teen and you're developing and everything, it's a lot. So I homeschooled during 2020 because he couldn't wear masks, physically. Of course, he had medical exemptions, but it didn't matter because other people, were afraid. And he already has like a neon sign when you're in a wheelchair and everything. And so we homeschooled during that. Because you literally physically can't wear a mask. People with EV or PC, the skin blisters and breaks apart from pressure and friction, and then it affects the esophagus and the larynx. And we've lost a lot of babies and a lot of children and even adults because of what happens to the mouth and to the larynx and the esophagus. And one of those things that sometimes, people think it's a skin condition. It is far above and beyond a skin condition. It's there's a genetic mutated gene, and then there's also a chromosome. So it's a very complicated. Our bodies are very unique. I think we all have different things, right? And it can be for all different reasons, environmental, it can be stress, it could be all kinds of stuff. But I really can't wait till I can get my daughter in school and I can feel comfortable. She's almost 6, so it's time. But I think it's time. I need an extra hand at home because it's gotten too much now because the baby, I have to keep him like a bubble boy, from my daughter who doesn't mean any harm at all, but she doesn't understand. So she could whack into his leg. And the surgery used to just, affect the back of the heel, and then you have the hard cast, and there's nothing to worry about. But obviously, the complication made this a much more in-depth surgery. It was a whole different world to do the donor nerves and all of that. And thank God for people that donate because of them, he may have the ability now to not lose the foot. Bye, Star. Have a great night. Be safe. Oh, little Red-O, I'm so sorry that you have to deal with that. That's frustrating. That is definitely frustrating. I am so grateful for you guys chatting with me and having my nervous energy redirected away from my poor kids. Because kids can sense this stuff. They really can. They really can, especially babies. I think I need to find a wet wipe or something for my shoes so that they're not cling, cling, cling everywhere I go. So I don't know about you, but it's annoying to me to hear it. I don't know if you guys can hear it. It's annoying. Oh my goodness, is somebody really sitting in their car right now? What are they doing? What are they doing? Hmm. I wouldn't be sitting in the car. I mean, unless you have no choice. Well, I think that's what's good, about YouTube, and especially when you start to get to know people and have other, creators that you can talk to and you get to know, other people. So you can kind of help each other. And sometimes you do need a break, from certain things when it comes to the cases too. Like I had never exclusively focused on true crime. Whenever I did, my hobby and stuff I enjoyed was always like the talk radio type, Dear Abby, opinion, investigative journalism on various topics, and then hearing all different people's opinions. So I love hearing everybody else's opinions because we have so many different experiences. Things can be totally different for two people, and yet they're 100% right, with whatever it is that they're feeling at that time, even though each other won't agree with each other. And that was one of the things that my Nana instilled in me as a child, because she had so many siblings, was not to be in an echo chamber. The only way to truly grow and, be an overcomer and things like that is to be around other people. I mean, yes, you got to be careful because birds of a feather sometimes can flock together. And the whole saying of, you lay with dogs, you could get fleas. But you don't judge a book by its cover. You give everybody a chance, and you come together and you discuss things. And then if you find some people that are just, you know, for whatever reason, whether it's emotional or whatever the case may be, that there is no agree to disagree, or we can't say a fact is a fact, then, that's not exactly the type of people that I want to have discussions with. But I enjoy doing content like that where we can, the way it used to be before everybody became so divided over everything. I'm not used to that. I'm used to people having all different beliefs and all different, personal choices, and it doesn't have anything to do with us being able to be friends and neighbors. And, like the way I grew up was like, you do you. As long as you're not harming someone, it has no effect. Mind your business kind of thing. As long as you're not hurting anybody. And that could be subjective, right? Because there is some people that are in another level where they, especially like, well, we can get into that another day, but there's like a whole different level sometimes with some things where what they think is hurting is like not at all. Well, that's why I'm taking a little bit of a break from, doing things about Sebastian right now, just to let everybody breathe I don't want my whole goal, even though it didn't appear that way, unless you could actually sit down and listen to the story and look through my content and understand, was to never be a distraction. I was literally moving here. I assumed because of my involvement with autism awareness, because of my daughter and her eloping and losing my brother-in-law from my first marriage to choking, because he was a piler, a shoveler, they used to, the slang term for it. He was completely nonverbal. And when he got over 6 feet tall, my then mother-in-law and father-in-law, they had to put him in a residential. And we would take him on weekends and we would take him on holidays. But, affording an aide all the time is very expensive. So the family, you are the aide, you are the caregiver, you help each other. And so because of having that, gift in my life of understanding that, and then my godson, he's nonverbal, but nonverbal is also subjective because he does sign and he does have a few words. So it depends on what nonverbal means to you, what your diagnosis was and what your therapists and, you know, I think if you were at Lady Freedom's, anybody knows we talked a little about that. And so you just assume the worst. I mean, every time, for about a year and a half, all the time, I would see the news of a little child with autism, that eloped. And then you know what happens. They're drawn to water, and it's just terrifying when you have a child like that. Terrifying. Um, Absolutely terrifying. And that's what I thought with Sebastian initially. But, sadly, that's where your mind goes. And, so I just came into this, praying and sharing and not being a subscriber to, a channel that brought it up, but actually, knowing because this was an area that we were moving. We have family here. We have my, you know, bio mom that retired. She has her ranch and she goes back and forth from this, Tennessee area to Arizona. And it's just been heartbreaking to see, the internet in a different way that I never expected it to be when it came to active missing kids. I just figured overall, when it comes to children, it's like our most vulnerable, our senior citizens, our children, our veterans, our different abilities, our widows, different things that we have this added layer of, we kind of, watch out for one another, right? So my guard was completely down in the beginning. I honestly have seen the worst of the worst, like we all have, online. And I studied a lot of it in college with different psych courses and never dreamed that there would be such malice for fun. There's some people and they're like, oh, it's for funsies. I don't know how you control and distract and do stuff like that in a child's investigation for funsies. So for me, I just felt that, right now when people are doing weird stuff, and in your real actual life, and it's just somebody's done something, probably has nothing to do with anybody of substance. It's just some random person. There's a lot of, just random, like years ago on the internet, you remember that PewDiePie and all of those trolling communities I mean, it's a thing, kids used to just have a lot of fun and do silly nonsense. And it's almost like a bunch of those types of people somehow hopped into watching true crime and they think crime is hilarious. Like they're desensitized to the reality of the actual fact that it's a real person and these are real people. And I'm like, I'm just not doing this. Like, whatever reason that people are doing silly nonsense, it's doing nothing but taking away from what is the absolute most important. And that is discussing this young teenager and spreading awareness so that wherever he may be, somebody learns about it and makes the decision to call in the tip, right? And if people can just take something that's said and then they run with it for days, it clogs up the algorithm. It pushes people away. And so that's why I'm like, let me just take a little break because I know that that's what this does. That's all it's for. The arguing back and forth and stuff and everything is totally different than real life stuff, right? There's content, even if it's content that sometimes some people may not like. There's content that, some people might not enjoy, right? But then there's not content. And if you're doing nonsense in people's real lives, it's not, I don't know. I don't know how to articulate this properly, but I think, you guys know what I'm saying. So I figured this is a good time to take a break with so much happening in my real life because I want our stories to be separated. Sebastian's story should not be my story. It's not my story. He is his own young man. He has a father that's advocated nonstop for him. And even though I already had my channel for my family and we made that decision years ago when I started having to talk in front of the FDA and things for the rare condition for my son and got involved with the organization. I wanted to raise awareness to help. I'm not looking to bring any problems ever. If I can stop it, I'll stop it. So it's like, let me just take a little break, see, and maybe we can try to kind of figure out who are these jokesters that think some of this is fun, because it's not funny. It's pretty gross. I agree, Little Redo, and I look so forward to being able to come on and talk with you. I'm so thankful that you had, the kindness to think of me because that's really in I enjoy looking into stuff like that and using my brain and keeping my brain going because when you're a caregiver and you're stuck home most of the time, even if you get out, which is very rare, but when you're working and stuff, you're working to pay bills, right? So it's not necessarily something that you're truly enjoying. And you want adult time and you want to be able to have respite. And I'm the type of person that's like a nerd. I love to learn all things, especially if it's impacting our life. And it's like a respite, to keep your brain going. My husband jokes around about, oh, you're adulting. Are you adulting? Make sure you get adulting in there. And so I look forward to that because it is really interesting. I don't want to be a part of that, right? Like I wouldn't want to go hang out with all the people that, you know, are psychopaths and stuff, but I have no problem once we're safe to address and discuss and analyze, especially because you always get to a human component. That's one of the things that's hard for me is that when I look into stuff, I still always can humanize the person, and that stinks sometimes, because what they do is awful. But then you kind of still have that part of you that you're like, well, it's so sad because they went through this, this, and this in their life, and look what happened. Look what they turned into. But then there's some people that you can't humanize. They're just rotten, awful, right? Horrible. Because I was thinking about doing a little bit on Casey Anthony since she's back up and, you know, being talked about a lot. I think my entire family fell asleep from what I see on the camera. Let me go take a peek. I think they all literally fell asleep in the middle of the rec room. I know my husband pulled the couches all together and had like a fort for everybody. Are you guys sleeping? The neighbors aren't here, right? No. I would have saw them and heard them. Yep. My husband's sound asleep, laying in my daughter's hammock. She's sleeping on the couch, and then he's not sleeping. I knew the teenager's not sleeping. He's hoping that I don't forget to put the certain things on the internet. I know lately he's trying to sneak on to certain games and things. It's a whole scary world right now when you have teenagers and the internet. Oh my gosh. Wow, really, Trishy? How do I share I don't even know how to share this thing. Are we out of a tornado watch? Yeah, it's seen things that people have been sharing on her. Do you know why? Why she's doing that? But yeah, I look forward to collaborating with you if if that still pans out and everything, because I know life can change sometimes. Oh, it turned off. Okay, let me fix it. Little Red-O. And I'm not saying I'm never gonna talk about Sebastian or anything like that at all. Not at all. I'm saying like, if somebody invites me up like Lady Freedom, or it's just for right now, I think this is a good strategy for a week or two to kind of just see what's happening and why, without allowing it to be exploited on social media. Just take a little breaksy, and let's see, if we can kind of figure out where some of this is coming from for myself without tying up anybody's time with nonsense. Because I'm just not, you know, I'm not okay with that. I know what it's like to be overwhelmed and stressed out as a parent, and I'm never gonna put somebody through stress at myself, because I am there, because I did something selfishly. You want it back? You want it back? Is it Baba time? Maybe you need a little Motrin, because at night sometimes it hurts more, right? Oh, don't bang your foot. Don't bang your foot. Don't bang your foot. Are you getting silly because it's late? You guys are used to being in night. Yeah, the storm was so loud. You didn't get to go night. I'll get you another Baba, and I think it's Motrin time. We'll give you a little Motrin. I don't know where his Baba is. I keep forgetting you guys can't see from the camera, and I'm just assuming that you're watching. Yeah, that would be great. I ordered a couple books. I found a really neat website, Little Red-O. It's like a thrift store for books, and they're really cost effective. And then you can send them back. Yeah. So I'm excited for that, because I like to hold the books in my hand. I can't always obviously read them all at once, but I read them in between, right? Oh, here it is. All right, I'll be right back. I'll get your Baba. Um, it's kind of like with talking and stuff. I can sit there and have a quick conversation with the ear pods and stuff, but I feel bad when I'm text communicating or trying to draft emails and stuff, because I usually have to start and stop. And I don't know how people do it with the autocorrect features when it comes to Apple devices, but it is atrocious. I have never experienced such, um, I mean, it's embarrassing. You have to be very careful when you're especially if you're doing it for work purposes and things, because the phone, whenever I've seen like this correlation, and if you guys have ever used Apple products, let me know if you've noticed this. When there is an update, right, that's pending or something, or one that's about to come, or you just updated, the autocorrect goes wackadoo. And I would sit there and I will type something out, because this has happened on and off, I'd say for about maybe a year and a half. And it'll be fine. I go back, I amend whatever it is, right? I edit and amend whatever word it decided to change to whatever it changes it to. And then you go to hit the send button and it diverts and changes it's the most frustrating thing I've ever experienced. And I noticed it seems to revolve around updates. And I even went to Apple twice over the course of like the last year and a half, maybe 2 years even, to have them shut off the auto type. Like, just turn it off. I don't want it then, right? It's not saving any time by automatically, filling a word in when you start typing it. If you then have to go back and edit the word out, or you have to go back if you're in a chat or you're in a conversation with someone and say, I did not mean, half of that crazy sentence. This is actually what I meant. So I was like, just shut it off. And it keeps coming back. It's really annoying to me. I don't know about you guys. Oh my goodness. Casey Anthony is trying to become an influencer. Yeah, the Mac annoyed me because during 2020 they gave a stipend for us to get different computer devices and things, since we had to go to remote. I'll always miss that. That was my favorite job. I had this little office. I love that job. We all have those jobs that we've had, right? That when you look back on it, you're like, that was the best. Um, just the environment was great. But then they downsized a lot and did a lot more remote after, everything had to temporarily. And I couldn't stand the thing. They were having to constantly send people out, or they were having to constantly, get into the computer remotely. And so now I use a lot of Windows stuff. But with the phones, I'm so used to the iPhone. I enjoy the iPhone, but I don't enjoy what I feel like it does to you when you're trying to communicate, especially like when you're working and things. And I have to do a lot of like the temp assignments because I don't really know long term. Like, am I going to be able to do this, 20 hours a week or whatever, right? It's all really dependent on, what's going on with, my son, and then what was going on with my daughter. And then now with the with the baby. And before, it was what was going on with my Nana for a long time, because my Nana, you know, we lost her to end stage dementia, but, she took care of me after raising her children, assisting with all of her humongous, large family that, she meant the world to me. So I wanted to be there for her. I wanted to make sure I could take her to her wound care and her, all of her doctors. And so I tried to just always have jobs that could work around life, because we don't get this time back with our family, and I watched my family my whole life, all sides of it. They're great work ethic, amazing, hardworking people, but that's, I mean, they've missed everything, you never get that time back. So to me, once I started having children, when my son was born that had his different abilities, my whole focus changed. I started out the gate, going to college, working, having him in, Montessori, the preschools and stuff. And then I realized, like, I can have master's degrees, I can get a PhD, but that's never going to replace this time. I had a beautiful experience, I think, because of having my Nana. I got to see things from a different angle on how fast life goes by and how no matter how much money you can make, time is invaluable and you can save a couple $100,000 and you can have something happen with your health and all of it is gone. And you can do it again and again and again. So I enjoy the temp assignments because they work around your schedule more. And also, it's more fun, I think, for me. I like to do different stuff. I don't know about you guys, but once the kids are, able to be more independent, I know I'll enjoy going back and finishing my master's or whatever I end up deciding. Because where I start in life doesn't always end up, where your life goes. So I don't have the same interest now that I did in the beginning. Oh, Little Red Owl, I couldn't believe that they still had that on. Because they say for years, oh, even though it would affect your credit report, it wasn't supposed to impact people's decision making. And we all know it does. And so often the medical that gets thrown onto people's credits isn't even accurate. My husband still every now and then has to send in a dispute because there's a medical thing on his um, credit from like 2005, way over the statute of limitations, and it's not his. It's a totally different person, different date of birth, same name, and we have no idea, but it always comes back somehow. It always sneaks its way back in there, and then you have to dispute it. I don't like how they've changed all the so many things have changed over the years with credit. Like we were of the belief that you do not want credit. You want to pay for everything in full, save, try not to have your cars financed. And obviously, homes, you don't have a choice because they're just astronomical. But now it seems like it's the opposite. Like even your car insurance and things are based off of your credit, and you don't want ghost credit. Paying in full and not having a lot of open lines of credit actually can hurt you now. I mean, it just makes no sense to me. Yeah, they don't follow the rules. It's confusing too, because I had one of the student loans. It was a very small amount that was on one of the credit reports. And I thought it was actually, an oversight on our part when I was making my payments. So I had paid it off. I think it was only like 1,200 or 1,300. It must have been something, from like the bookstore or something, and we're talking like almost 20 years ago. I don't even I don't even want to say that out loud. It shows my age, but um I'm just kidding. I'm not one of those people that's embarrassed of my age. But I ended up just paying it off because I was like, okay, well, must be, must be whatever it was at the time. And then we found out a few years later that it wasn't accurate and I had unclaimed funds. Remember when people were looking up the unclaimed funds when it's like a big thing. I actually had unclaimed funds. It was funny. And it was really frustrating because when I paid that off, it impacted our credit. because that was when we were selling our first house. And then that's why we waited a little bit, a little over a year to make sure that our interest rate would go down, only because when I paid that little thing off, it actually hurt the credit. And then to find out that it wasn't even accurate and get the money back. Of course, you don't get it back with interest or anything. Years later was a bit, I mean, it's just a mess. So many things are a mess. And then I think it's great that there's a lot of stuff that Trump's able to overturn and get kind of back to just, simple, just basics. I mean, I just don't think certain things as credit and things like that should be so fluid and change multiple times throughout a lifespan. Like it's ridiculous. My son touched base with me today. He was allowed to use the phone for a little bit he's off, doing finishing the basic training. And then I forgot what they call it. But this is the last time they're doing whatever my son's in. He's in this 26-week, training program for the Army. And then because he wants to be like a paratrooper. And that's why Fort Campbell is, where he wanted to be, as opposed to doing a lot of the other assignments that he actually qualified for. I mean, I'm proud of him, whatever he wants to do, obviously. I mean, but I am not thrilled that he wants to be in the Army, let alone jump out of planes, although I love our military and our country. It's just, it's just a mom thing. But nonetheless, he got to chit chat with me a little today, and he was explaining to me, how everybody that he knows, because of how different things are, like everybody that he went to school with, and some people that started college and stuff, like it's actually impossible for them to make it. So everybody's kind of re-strategizing and trying to figure things out, because like the apartments and even car insurance, if you're under 25, the car insurance is like astronomical now. So it's really sad, when you see the differences between generations and the costs, and then you have credit changing, and so many people that had, you paid off all those medical bills, or you do certain things to make sure that you don't have it on the credit, and then they end up taking it away and wiping it off anyway. It's just sad. It's a lot. Hey, Jude. Oh, I love the screen name. I love it. That's what you have to do. You have to make a comedy. I made a funny over it. I made a funny last night, actually. I drew a little fake packet. I made a joke. You have to turn things into humor. I didn't know Mr. and Mrs. E were live. Does anybody know how they're doing with this hurricane warning? Not a hurricane warning. Oh, geez. Tornado warning? Well, thank you for letting me know about that, Little Redo, because that's good to know. I mean, we've always had insurance and things, but a lot of people, I don't think, unless you've experienced different medical challenges, right? Or injuries or whatnot, just what it does to you. You don't really ever get a chance to, have a retirement, and it's a whole different world. It's a whole different world. I would never change it. I love our children, and I am very grateful for my husband and how much he works to provide for us. But it does stink, when you least expect something, and then you're working hard and you're looking forward to, like, Disney with the kids or whatever it is. And then you have to, put it on the back burner because a big whopping, new bill emerges. I don't know. I'm not getting any notifications. I don't have one notification for anybody. Maybe it's the weather. I don't know. It's odd. Because I have the alarm set where when I turn my alarm on, then obviously I don't get notifications. I just get, emergency calls, from like my pop or the mother-in-law, if there's an emergency, I have certain contacts. Right, Little Red-O? Oh my goodness. Hi, Lisa. I hope you're doing good. Yeah, my husband and my pop are the ones that are good with all that. Like I know they've figured all the money market, and so I remember they give you all the plans, when you have the baby, like the Gerber plans and everything. And instead they started something else for each one of the kiddos. And then, but by the time they're older now, it's probably not going to be much. Because I know my son's little investments and stuff were supposed to, how they used to have like savings bonds and they would double in 20 years or whatnot. Trying to look at the radar to see if we're out of a storm. And then is Mr. and Mrs. E on much longer? Because I feel bad being live. Maybe I could end and check it out. I don't remember them being on so late. I didn't even think. Wondering if the storm has finally passed because it's frozen on the TV for some reason. Ugh, so stressful, Little Red-O. It's so stressful. And that's what I kept telling my older son is that, especially because, my ex-husband's family is amazing and they're so incredible and they would help if need be with him with college if we ever needed that. So I tried to make sure, that he understood that he can go to college. He can go, you know, live in a dorm and have the experience and get to figure out what he wants to do after junior, after all the basics are done, you do your associates, get all the prerequisites and all the, what is it called? All the stuff you have to get out of the way. That'll give you time to try to hone in on what you really want to go for a major and a minor. Because I didn't want him to feel like he had to get into the military because he's smart. He knows that, even if we never say a word, kids are very smart. And I never wanted him to feel like he, that would burden us. But ever since he was little, he has always wanted to go into the army and he always wanted to become a detective and he wanted to do, like be a canine handler as an officer. And he's always said that since he was small. Mind you, he spends a lot of time hanging out at Camp Smith and things like that because, my generation was, the whole horrible tragedy of, September, you know, because I don't think you can say 1-1, you can't say it. I think it's one of the trigger words still on the tube. So he grew up with a lot of, with all of his immediate family and then almost all of my friends, enlisting during that, horrible event of, in September. And so I think that's where where he got that from. But I just wanted to make sure that he knew, that there was always options and that I would support him if he wanted to go to college and have the dorm experience. But he seems to be doing pretty good. And it's nice because like he was explaining to me, he'll have the ability to, you know, do college and stuff. And, the army, covers certain things and he's so excited about the fact that he's there during such historic times, right? Because they're changing the names back. So like Fort Moore is now Fort Benning again, and they're going back to just basic training because I think recruitment is finally up enough. Whereas before, they would do a lot of other things and you could take a lot of different tests and then, with your ASVAB scores and certain stuff, and you could take certain assignments and then you get longer training. But now I think they're just going back to doing the basic he was explaining. But I wouldn't doubt if he does exactly what he says he was always wanting to do, because he wanted to be a lawyer, but then he convinced himself that there was really not going to be money in lawyer, like in being a lawyer, that there's too many lawyers. And I was like, what? Because, but then I have a good friend that's a lawyer and he ended up doing family mainly. And then he does, real estate on the side for extra money. And by extra money, I mean he outright owns like a really nice house in the Poconos, that kind of extra money. Like, so I didn't think it was really like that. But then from what I've been told by our cousin, she was a lawyer in Virginia, but then when she moved to New York, she didn't want to, I don't know what it was. She had to do something different to have it in New York. So now she just works at the law firm, but she still, can practice in Virginia or whatever. And it is hard because it's a lot of money for schooling and everything, right? It takes a long time and then you have to find a firm and things that will take you. Oh, right, Little Red Owl. Isn't that a great feeling? That's the one thing, knock on wood. We don't have any car payments. Knock on wood. But if this keeps up with the medical, I don't know what's going to happen. We're probably going to have to start using credit. And that's okay because it's a hard economy and I am very grateful for everything that we've had. And there's people that right now don't know how to keep food in their house and it's at no fault of their own because they are good work, they're hardworking and it's just, some things sometimes are beyond our control. So I'm not complaining. But hopefully things do settle down and, we can get the economy back to where it needs to be because it is getting really crazy, you know. And people are so rude too because a lot of times, they make nasty comments about, oh, well, people shouldn't be having children and it's just hurtful stuff. People get so, I don't get it. I mean, what is life? Life is always ups and downs. My grandparents, they went through the Great Depression, they went through the gold standard, they went through going to the movies and getting popcorn and everything and having a dime and still having it left over. Like, I think it's a shame, when people think that we just shouldn't have children. Well, if we don't have children, we're going to have problems because that's the circle of life. Who's going to be there to keep everybody going if we have no children? We have no future generation. So I don't know. But a lot of people get like that, where they're like, oh, well, you shouldn't have children with how bad the costs are, or especially like, disabilities and things. And I'm like, well, we've worked really, really hard to not, to take care of them and to make sure that we cover their medical needs and things and not deplete the resources and everything. But at the end of the day, they matter and they deserve everything that everybody else has a chance to. And it's just sad how people get, especially with me, I have a different opinion because in New York, we paid so much money in property and school taxes, and our taxes were insanity, absolutely insanity. I think the tornado watch is over. Are you gonna go to bed now, bud? I think you're good. It looks okay on the TV. If you want to stay down there with Dad, and because obviously, I guess they're gonna hunker in and just stay in the rec room. Amen, little Red. No, I am so grateful to have my children. No, I don't think a lot of people realize there's nothing in this world like family and children, whether you have them biologically or they come to you, through adoption or fostering or whatever way that they come into our lives. Family is so important. And I grew up with my grandparents and my having so much family. It's funny because my whole little neighborhood at the time, everybody had lots of siblings and aunties and uncles, and everybody kind of lived around each other because it was New York, so it was so many immigrants, right? And different families. It was amazing to see. And it was so great because everybody watched out for each other, right? You came home for dinner, you weren't out when street lights came on. And I just always wanted to have that same thing because as you get older, extended family and stuff, it's not the same, right? Sorry, I'm reorganizing all the emergency stuff just in case. And having siblings and we don't always get along with everybody, that's life. But there's nothing like knowing that when you're going through something, you have somebody that, is going to come and they're going to stay with you a week or two. And that's what I always grew up with, all the aunts and all my cousins, if somebody was having surgery or somebody was having a baby or there was a loss of, somebody lost their husband or a wife or whatever, they would come assist each other. You- There's always somebody there, and it's sad when you don't, you know, it's like, well, you gotta try to find a really good babysitter or find a really good, housekeeper and it's not the same. And that's what, when things are so bad in the economy, it takes away a lot of that because people can't. I think a lot of people do get hesitant on having kids. And I think a lot of people also, everybody's working 2 or 3 jobs and you don't have the availability. And we miss a lot of time with each other and then it's over and it's just heartbreaking. You think you're going to be able to go night night soon? Hmm? Well, I'll probably wrap this up for a bit and then try to go check into the weather and try to see if there's any other good books I could order, Lil Redo, and then go skim through Mr. and Mrs. E's. You know, I think something too is I've had this channel for so many years that I need to just sit down and just take the time to just get rid of a lot of the stuff I follow. I think there's just too many things I followed over the years, and I'm not getting the right. Um, I'll see you all later. Let me wrap this up and re-strategize. But thank you all for chit-chatting with me and keeping me focused during all that hecticness. I appreciate it. Take care.